Alright, what's up guys? Today we have a brand new video. We have a new event called the monster type event. I believe it's called, yeah, King of the Island. This is basically you can only use certain monster types. It's limited to just beast warriors, beast, wing beast. This is the insects and reptiles is all that you can use. They've got a few loner decks. I would actually recommend maybe using some of the loner decks because honestly this ban list was so comprehensive. They hit just an absolutely outrageous amount of archetypes. So when we get to which ones you should use, it's quite interesting. So right here we have Fire Kings. Fire King is actually a really cool deck. So if you're going to use any of the loner decks, I would suggest this one because it's just overall it's one of those decks that has like a variety of different URs that you would have to build to actually play the deck. So it might be a great idea to actually just play this loner deck. It's actually, like I said, it's a cool loner deck. There's a lot of, unfortunately, there's not like a lot of URs, but there are URs in the archetype. Like I think the Garuga is a UR, and then some of the extra deck stuff is URs. So it's nice to actually give this deck a try through an alternative means. So this is a cool loner deck I would suggest playing. And then they've got, this is probably going to be one of the better decks in general. It's Giant Ballpark. So you've got their version, but their version sucks because it's got basic insect. And then we've got an ogdoadic deck, which you can borrow this one or you can build your own. But let's get to the decks that you should bring yourself. All right, first up we've got the deck that I will more than likely be playing. This is actually Giant Ballpark. If you're a very long time viewer of the channel, this is one of my very favorite decks. I topped the regional once with this deck. It's incredibly fun. Basically it's a going second strategy. Luckily some of the dangers are fully unlimited. Alpha King of all beasts is fully unlimited, and Mothman is fully unlimited. So all of those are completely and totally unlimited, and basically they're just like a bunch of upstart goblins. So terraforming is banned, but you can actually just use things like Danger Bigfoot and Mothman and card destruction, stuff like that, just to dig deeper and deeper into your deck so that you can get to Giant Ballpark, because there's no other way to search. Unfortunately, in set rotation is banned in Master Duel, terraforming's banned in Master Duel, and the only search card you have is Metaverse, and it's a trap card, and the whole point is to OTK your opponent. But another positive is Max C is available, totally available. It's at 3 in this event. And also you've got this other Sneaky C, which is basically like Raigeki, but on a Max C. That's another cool card. And then for the extra deck, here we go. We've got these cards right here. The extra deck you do use stuff like this Inzektor, Pikaflana. You use a few of the others, but basically the entire point of the deck is just get to the battle phase, activate the Giant Ballpark, get to the battle phase, attack with anything, and you get to summon 3 of these dudes, and they're 2,000 attack each, and that's about 75% of your opponent's life points. So as long as you can just do another 2,000 damage, you win the duel. It's basically an OTK deck. The games go super duper quickly. It's a really fun deck. The next deck is Beetroopers. This is another insect archetype. I think we'll learn that insects are going to dominate this event, just because insects they didn't get hit at all. Like I don't know if there's any insects at all that got hit. And it's funny because in my tier list I just was talking about how not that great insects are. But yeah, they didn't get hit in any way whatsoever. So insects are essentially at full power, and all of like the beast, Tri-brigade, all that stuff got hit so badly, whereas this didn't. It does suck that some of the cards are higher rarities. Like if you look at this extra deck, like look how many URs and SRs the extra deck has, and I'm not even playing the giant fusion monster that you can be playing. That would make it even more expensive. But yeah, this is, like, you could see the amount of URs here is just absolutely outrageous, especially in the extra deck. In the main deck, not so bad. The only one you would have to craft is Sting Langser. Now you can get away with running one of the Invincible. You can get away with running, you know, one of the Inzektor. You have to run 3 of this, but like, you can cut this down. This is in the Legacy pack, actually. I probably have, yeah, I have 5 copies of this. Yeah, you can definitely cut down some of this stuff, and this is probably going to be the best deck to play. The techs that you can play are all over. There's so many different ways to play this deck. I've got some really old combos on my channel, and none of them have gotten hit because this deck has never gotten hit. But you can actually play some of the trap trick stuff in this deck, and you can search like the trap holes. You can search like yeah, you can make things like Alomeris if you wanted to, because it's you know, it's generic. But there's so many different things that you can do with this particular deck. It's actually really crazy. This is probably going to be the best deck in the entire festival, just because it didn't get touched at all on the ban list whatsoever. And I'm pretty sure you can search Max C. I don't know if you can search Max C, but you can definitely search... Sneaky C, and you can search Retaliating C. So you can definitely search those two with Resonance, but but Max C, I don't think you can search, but there's probably some way that I'm not thinking of that you can search it. But this is probably going to be the best deck in the entire festival. Alright, next up, to take a little break from the insects, we've got this is Tri-brigade Control, specifically Control. So unfortunately, Tri-brigade is hit really badly, Zodiacs is hit really badly, Lyrilusks are hit, like all of those are all hit. Even Melffys have a banned card, unfortunately. So this is kind of like a Tri-brigade Melffy deck, but I've had some control elements put into it so it can compete and it can kind of slow down the game. But basically the entire point of this is there's a ton of cards that kind of slip by the ban list that are still somewhat decent. You can't like absolutely spam monsters. Revolt is banned, stuff like that is banned, which is frustrating. But if you slow the game down, you can definitely compete with something like Beetroopers. One thing that's cool is that Scapegoat is fully legal. It summons Beast Warriors, and then those it summons Beasts, 4 Beasts, and then of course you can use those to link summon if you wanted to. And then also Dogmatic Punishment is legal, and you've got both Garuga, the Brigand, Glory Dragon, which summons a Tri-brigade monster. This draws a card. And then also you've got Ferjeet, which draws and puts one back. And then you've got also the large monster, the Tri-brigade Arms Dude. You can send him, and then if this card's sent to the graveyard, you can send a Beast Warrior, all of that to the graveyard. So basically, Dogmatic Punishment has a ton of synergy with this deck. And it's basically, like I said, this is like a control variant of the deck. Like I wish we can play it the regular way, but it just got hit so badly on the ban list that it's just almost unplayable. But here we've got, we'll conclude another Garuga just to clean it up here. We've got Garuga, Brigand, Naturia Beast you still can make, Melffy of the Forest, Joyous Melffy. All of this stuff is fully playable. And unfortunately, like I said, it sucks that it did get hit to the degree that it did, but the deck is still fairly playable if you play like a control variant. It's still somewhat playable, and I would say it's actually... it's still kind of fun. It's just you need to kind of slow the game down a little bit. Next up, we've got Ogdoadic. This is basically a reptile archetype. Now reptiles are similar to insects in the fact that nobody really plays the reptiles separately. They play them more as kind of a pile deck. So basically, essentially what you're doing is you're just putting a bunch of good reptile cards all in one big deck, and then just playing all of those. That's the entire idea. And then you have Snake Rain, which is one of the greatest cards ever printed in a type that isn't that good. So it's allowed to be broken. So you've got Snake Rain. Yeah, the deck is overall, what it's missing is some of its non-reptile boss monsters. But as an archetype, it's actually quite good. You have the Reptilian cards, you have the Venom cards, you have the Reptilian, Venom, Alien cards, and Ogdoadic cards. Basically all of the good reptile archetypes all mixed in a giant big pile, and it basically link summons, special summons. It does a lot. The only thing it doesn't have access to is the rank 8s that it typically has access to. Other than that, it has a pretty good resource loop. You can play things like Sinister Serpent, add this back every single turn. Well, not every single turn, because you can return it, but it banishes itself, unfortunately, but because of the errata. But generally it's actually quite good because it does give you some free resources. But overall the deck is fairly consistent. It's just missing some of its boss monsters, but it's still very, very strong, very playable in this festival because they hit so many other things. So that is the Alien Ogdoadic Reptilian deck. Next up, we've got Ancient Warriors. Ancient Warriors has slipped through the cracks yet again. It seems to slip through every single festival, which is awesome. Only one card is hit. It's the Masterful Sun Mu. That is the only one that got hit. Obviously, that's one of the more important monsters. That's why they hit it. But it's fine because everything else survived, and we'll live with that. Like, no complaints from me. We'll live with that. Unfortunately, it is one of the monsters you can actually normal summon because the deck is full of like special summons and high level monsters. So it does suck that one of the normal summons is gone, and that definitely hurts the deck, but it's fine because we've got 3 Fire Formation 10 keys, and we have other search cards, so it's totally fine that got hit. It's not the end of the world, because I mean, compared to like Tri-brigade and some of the other decks, this, like, the amount that this deck got hit is minimal, and I'm perfectly happy with where it's at. Yeah, the deck is still quite good. I wouldn't say it's sort of a budget deck because the main deck is rather cheap. And if we're being honest, the only extra deck monster that you will typically go into in a duel is going to be the Ancient Warrior Oath. That is usually the only one that you will actually go into. The rest of them are just here, if we're being honest, kind of for decoration. This is very much a main deck. So the majority of these you will never actually... the majority of these are what are your win condition, and the majority of these you won't go into. Like I said, other than Oath, you will go into Oath because this gives you a bounce and it's a very good card. But like the rest of these are, you will really not ever summon them. You very rarely use the extra deck, and it is a going second deck, which is another cool aspect because you don't have to, like, if you maxi your opponent and your opponent ends, you usually will OTK or create a board state where your opponent can't get over things. So that part of it's cool. And then of course you can use things like alpha and stuff because you can bounce it off the board, and then bounce cards your opponent controls. Like this card is actually really cool, and it's a going second card, obviously. But yeah, this is Ancient Warriors slipped through another event and is definitely very playable. All right, the next deck we have here is Inzektor. Inzektor is actually a really old archetype. It's from, I guess it's around like 10 years ago. But basically, the entire point of this deck is basically just to equip your insects to other insects, and then you can do all types of things. A lot of the cards are not once per turn. They can pop cards very easily. And some of the newer insect support that just came out is actually really good with Inzektors. You have cards like Cocoon of Evolution, which is really good. You can summon a variety of various insect monsters, and this is actually an Inzektor card that recently came out. This is one that people voted on, so it exists because of your vote. Here we've got the ultimate raid insect. This is the one I'm talking about. This as new insect support. Basically, you can contribute a monster with 2,000 or more defense that is equipped with an equip card. So as you know, on all Inzektors essentially equip themselves, and this thing basically wipes the board during the battle phase, which is really cool. But yeah, it's basically an insect based equip archetype. It's kind of like Noble Knights for insects, but yeah, it's a really cool archetype. Everything is, the search power is insane. Nothing essentially is once per turn in the main deck, so a lot of those aspects about the deck are very cool. It's just another way to kind of play insects, which really hasn't been touched on this ban list. Alright, the last deck we've got here is Lunalight. Now, Lunalight did sustain a hit, but it's not like the biggest hit in the world. It's definitely an important one, but it's not the biggest hit in the world. So the hit that this deck sustained is the Keldeo Chick. Keldeo Chick sends for cost a Lunalight monster, which is really good, but it's not the end of the world that it got hit to 1. You can search it. Like I said, the deck is, I wouldn't say it's at full power, but I mean, it's missing 2 copies of 1 card. It's not the end of the world, the hits that this deck sustained. It's still a very good deck. It's a going second OTK deck, which makes it quite fun to play. Yeah, most of the main deck is actually rather cheap. Tiger is at 3 in Master Duel, which is really cool because that one is like a monster reborn, plus if it gets popped, it's still a monster reborn. So it's a very good card. And yeah, the whole point of the deck is the pure version is just a fusion summon. You basically go into this and yeah, you just attack your opponent and win the duel. You attack them, don't destroy their monster, and just do battle damage. But it's cool because you have Leo Dancer, you have all of them. This makes multiple attacks. Some of them can attack all monsters your opponent controls. Basically, that's what the deck does. And then you've got the boss monster here, the Sabre Dancer. But overall, it's a really fun deck to play. It's an OTK deck. It's got access to some cool links like this right here. This pops a card, so you can actually pop your own Lunalight Tiger. You can use Cross Sheep because you can special summon a fusion monster to a zone it points to, and then special summon another monster, which is really good. And then for G, I don't really go into it, but it's whatever. But yeah, it's another cool archetype that you have access to. Only one card got hit, and it's a deck that typically in the regular meta doesn't see a lot of play, so it's nice to see it represented once in a while. But that is the entire list of all of the decks that I think are playable. I probably missed something. I've done a lot of research for this one because the lists were so comprehensive and so many decks got hit. It was kind of outrageous. But if there's anything I missed, please let me know in the comment section down below, and please leave a like, because this one actually took an unbelievable amount of work to do. Thank you for watching. La, 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 la.